The secret to succeeding in Frostborn is completing the Sanctum of Odin. This requires clearing the guest hall and killing the giant chief, which gives you a key to unlock the Sanctum. The Sanctum has a lot more enemies, including the Necromancer boss who drops a forge key. 3 forge keys unlock the forge, which is an even harder challenge, ending in an epic fight with the Iron Golem in a room filled with fireballs. And then completing the forge unlocks the archives, which is arguably the hardest challenge in all mobile gaming, because even 4 skilled players with great gear will be demolished by this challenge if they do not know what they are doing. So in this video, I am going to show you everything you need to know about completing the forge. In order to enter the forge of the Sanctum of Odin, you will need 3 keys by killing the Necromancer boss 3 times. I explained the best way to do this in my last video of this series covering the best way to clear the Sanctum. I also recommend watching the first video of this series because I cover many of the basic tactics of completing this challenge. One of those basics that I cover in that video is that it is difficult for me to predict how many resources you will need to bring with you. That being said, if I'm completing the forge solo, I usually bring these items. Having a higher level berserk significantly changes how many green weapons I need, Pathfinder affects how many bows I need, and the sorcerer class changes how many fire traps I need. And then lastly, whether or not I have any instigator gear significantly lowers the need of every item that I use while I am not getting hit. If I've already done the forge and gotten a fire dagger, then those resources are reduced by this, and my level of rogue or assassin really only affects how much I have to repair my fire dagger. And then lastly, if I'm playing with a team of 2 or more, then I replace all of the green weapons with spears and no longer need a set of purple gear and weapons to kill the Iron Golem because he is a lot easier with the team. That being said, if it's your first time, I am still going to recommend you bring a set of purple gear for that part of the challenge. So now that I've given you some rough estimates on how many materials you'll need, let's talk about how to take on the 108 enemies of the forge. The most efficient path to take is to take out these 3 enemies, go through this door and take out these 4 enemies, and then reset these enemies so that you can sneak past them and undertake your first obstacle course challenge. After you clear these 3 enemies and then take out these 3 so that you have enough space to take on the Whisperer, which is the first boss of the forge, then you can open this door and clear these 4 enemies. Then you can use the Sharpshooter class to kill these 2 enemies so that you can sneak past this giant and kill these 4 enemies. After that, you can reset these guys and then take on the little guys one at a time and then sneak past this giant to kill these 2 enemies. This will allow you to sneak all the way down here to kill these 2. At this point, I recommend clearing this room to make it easier to reset this giant and kill these 5 enemies. And then after allowing these 3 enemies to kill themselves, you can undertake the second obstacle course challenge of the forge. After killing these 3 enemies and turning off the fire vents, you can kill this one, which gives you access to fighting the Iron Golem. Killing the Iron Golem is not an easy fight, but he is guaranteed to drop either a fire dagger or a fire bow, which are the 2 best weapons in the game. After finishing the Iron Golem, I will show you how to kill one of these enemies and then use this lever to open the door, turning the challenge into a loop. And then at this point, you or your team will want to meticulously kill all of the small enemies so that only giants remain. This then allows you to round up all of the giants into one giant group to kill them all with just a few fire traps. So let's go through this step by step. Just like the Sanctum, when you enter the forge, it is important to open these chests and put all of your extra weapons in there so that if you die, they will not lose durability. As you begin killing the first 3 enemies one at a time in the same method that I used in my other 2 videos, you will notice immediately that the average small enemy in the forge is significantly stronger than the average small enemy in the guest hall and Sanctum. This does not change anything about the tactic you'll be using, but if you are solo and find yourself running around in circles waiting for your heal to refresh more often, this is why. After you clear these 3 enemies and open this door, you will get your first encounter with a plaguey dragger. These enemies are suicide bombers and technically can be killed, but there is really no point to it. So the best way to kill them is to allow them to activate their skill and then move outside of the area of effect. If you have slow reflexes, the easiest way to do this is to start running away from them slowly so that they can catch up, and then once their skill is activated, start running faster. When you do this, you will notice that because you are already moving, it is easier to get out of their range. But as you get better, or if you have quick reflexes, you won't need to do this extra step. After he explodes, you will want to use the door frame trick that I lay out in my last video to take out these 2 ranged units one at a time, and then you can take on the giant hermit again using the tactics laid out in that last video. Then you can open this door and reset these enemies with an illusionist or by leaving the area. If this is your first time to do the forge, then I recommend killing these enemies one at a time, which will require you to kill your first Servant of Ash. Killing Killing the Servant of Ash is very similar to killing a stone giant, but in this case you won't have 2 good doors to work with, so for this situation it is best to run around him in circles for 5 seconds and then activate his skill like this, or just use simple bows. But if you have already done the forge once or twice, then I recommend sneaking past these enemies for now and moving on to the first obstacle course challenge of the forge. This challenge is not that difficult once you get good at it, but for a new team it can often stop you from getting any further, so let me give you 2 tips to make this easier faster. The first tip is to ignore one of the lines of fireballs. There is no reason to use 3, so focusing on only 2 makes the challenge simpler for your mind to grasp. The second tip is to stay at the base of the fireballs and just move back and forth over and over and over again. By doing this, you will have time to get used to the pattern without the risk of dying, since your teammates will easily be able to revive you if you get down. But if you are taking this approach, it is obviously important that these enemies have to be killed, or else you will probably accidentally trigger them while you are practicing. Once you get the hang of the pattern, then you should be able to go ahead and do it. Your nerves will tempt you to try to rush, but this will likely get you killed, so feel free to take as long as you need. If you want an even further advantage, I recommend after you've gotten used to the pattern, adding blue shoes or switching to the hunter class so that your movement speed is increased by 12 to 15%. This increase in movement speed will make moving at diagonals through the challenge feel roughly the same to you as when you were moving side to side without that extra speed. Once you make it to the other side, make sure to activate the lever and turn off the obstacle course before engaging any enemies. Once it's off, kill these 3 enemies one at a time, open this door, activate this Plaguey Draugr, and then aggro the 2 Children of Ash over to the door to fight them one at a time. Killing a Child of Ash is very similar to killing a Shaman, but its fireballs do a lot more damage. After they are both dead, you are ready to take on the Whisper. The Whisper has 3,500 hit points and no armor, so it does not take a lot of weapons to kill it. Its main skill, which it uses every 8 seconds, is really easy to dodge, but it is also extremely deadly, so if this is your first time doing the challenge, I recommend using simple bows so that you have more time to react. But the real stumbling block for new players is the Whisper's damage reflection skill, which it activates roughly every 10 seconds. This skill has taken out a lot of new players that don't even realize that they are damaging themselves, so when you see this purple thorn icon above its head, avoid doing any damage to the Whisper until the icon disappears. When the Whisper dies, it will drop a fire axe, 2 decent items, and a key to the archives. Unlike the Forge, it only takes 1 archive key to open the archives, but keep in mind that completing the archives is over twice as difficult as the Forge, so make sure you have enough time and resources to complete that challenge before Odin's resets. If you do not know how hard that challenge is or what resources you need, make sure to check out my next video of this series where I cover everything you need to know about the archives. When you continue through this door, you will need to reset these enemies and then take them out one at a time. If you are a new team, I recommend having your illusionist distract the wood giant while the rest of you kill these 3 enemies and then reset them. But if you are a more advanced team and want to save a little time, you can switch to the sharpshooter and use a Loki's arrow to draw these 2 enemies out to come attack you. After that, you can sneak past the giant to come and draw this enemy over to you, which then lets you get a sneak attack on this giant hermit. After you finish them off, you want to activate these 2 to self-destruct and then open this door and reset all of the enemies. With these enemies reset, you can use a Loki's arrow or throwing axe to draw these enemies towards you one at a time. Once all of the small mobs are finished off, you can sneak past this giant and get a sneak attack on this guy, and then run far enough away for this guy's self-destruct not to hit you, but not too far so that the Servant of Ash does not see you. At this point, you can walk along this wall and draw out these 2 enemies one at a time. Then I recommend opening this door, resetting them, and drawing them out one at a time. The first reason I recommend doing this is because it gives you a lot more space to work with. As you open this room, reset the enemies, kill the little guy, open this door, which requires having 1 teammate leading the giant around while you open it, and then finally you can reset him again. This can be kind of a complicated process, so if you're a solo player, I just recommend killing the stone giant using the tactics I've already shown you. But assuming that you are with the team, the second reason I had you clear this room is because you can use it to draw these enemies over into this room with you, which makes clearing these 4 enemies a lot easier. After that, you can open this door and activate these 3 enemies to self-destruct, and then open this door to reveal the second obstacle course challenge of the Forge. This challenge used to be extremely difficult because when the Forge was introduced to the game, the max amount of hit points a player could have was 100, and there was no healer class. But those times are long gone, and this challenge is really easy now. Simply wait until the fire gets right in front of you and then make a run for the nearest stone tile. If you get hit, simply heal up before running to the next tile. When you get to this tile, you will likely trigger one of these mobs to come attack you. Do not freak out. If you stand still, he will reset on his own. But if you try to run forward to get out of the challenge, you can actually make it possible for him to reach you. Once your whole team has made it to the end, attract these guys out one at a time to kill them, and then use the lever to turn off the fire. You can then come into this room and take out this guy, which gives you access to the room with the Iron Golem. At first, the Iron Golem might seem kind of easy because even though he has 10,000 hit points, he doesn't have any armor, which is ironic because he's made out of iron. Furthermore, his basic attack only does 29 damage, making him the weakest melee unit of his size in Odin's. But the real danger in fighting the Iron Golem are the 3 ways that he can apply true damage to you. Every 5 seconds after he has successfully landed a melee attack, he can drop a circle of fire, which does 10 true damage per second to everyone standing on it. If circles overlap, the damage stacks for every circle you are touching. Then approximately every 15 seconds, the Iron Golem will activate his cone skill, which does 100 initial damage to everyone in the cone, and then does 40 true damage over time. So these are significantly more dangerous skills, but they're still very easy to avoid at first. However, once the Iron Golem's health gets below 5,000, these cannons around the room activate and start shooting a grid of fireballs. Each of these fireballs do 50 initial damage and then 60 true damage over time. For a new team, this generally creates mass chaos ending in a swift team death, so let's talk about how to take on this challenge. If you're with a team, then I recommend having one player run the Iron Golem around in circles while the rest of the team members shoot it with simple bows. As long as the Iron Golem never gets off a melee hit, then he will not put any fire circles on the ground. During this process, I recommend having teammates open these chests and put all of their best stuff in there so that if you die, you won't lose any durability on them. Once the Iron Golem gets just above 5,000 hit points, make sure that everyone on your team is ready before continuing to the next phase. If you have a team member that is extremely skilled at kiting, then you can continue this process for the second half. But this is very rare, so for most teams, you will want to have a tank put on decent gear with a decent shield. That tank should then take the Iron Golem over to one of the corners of the room and engage in melee combat. When the Iron Golem starts to drop a circle of fire, the tank calmly analyzes the path of the fireball grid and moves to another safe spot, ideally just outside of the fire circle, so that the next fire circle will overlap his last one, thus preserving more safe areas in the room. It is very important for the tank to keep in mind that the fireballs do a lot more damage than his circle of fire, so it is best for him to take his time if it means avoiding getting hit by a fireball. Meanwhile, his team should stay at a safe distance using ranged weapons to deal damage. If your tank is feeling timid, you might want to have one of your teammates do damage with a support staff as a healer so that he can throw a heal his way if something goes wrong. Because the tank is going to lose some durability on his armor, I recommend using better weapons during this process. But that being said, if it is your first time doing it, then I would stick with simple bows and even have your tank in all level 1 gear and just make it a game to see how long you can last. This will allow you to get used to the pattern of the challenge without the risk of losing good gear. I also recommend this for solo players. It might feel like a big waste of time, and I know that I didn't do it in my gameplay videos, but learning the pattern in a no stress situation will likely give you 3 times as much veterancy as doing it normally. And then once the solo player is ready to take on the challenge normally, I recommend being the protector class and using a Rast staff and either plate or instigator armor to get him down to 5,000, and then switching to a Nord sword and shield and following the approach I laid out for the tank in the team version. Now to some of you, this might seem like a waste of really good gear, and as you get better, you will be able to pare it down, but you have to keep in mind that the Iron Golem has a guaranteed drop of one of the 2 best weapons in the game. The Fire Dagger is the best PvE weapon in the game, allowing you to save thousands and thousands of resources over the course of doing Odin's again and again. And it is also great in PvP if you are specialized in the Scoundrel line. And then the Firebow is the most overpowered PvP weapon in the game and would break the game game if it weren't for the Dispel potion that counters it. In addition to that, you get a Rune of Fire, which allows you to make Nord bombs to break metal walls, 6 pendants, 3 decent items, and 1 great item. So the guaranteed loot makes it worth it to use good gear on this challenge, but it is also an incredibly rewarding experience to overcome this challenge, as it is truly one of the hardest challenges in all mobile gaming, surpassing the difficulty of even some of the aspects of the archives, which we will be covering in the next video. When you open this door, you will need to avoid this character's self-destruct, and then I recommend having your illusionist take these 2 giants away while you open this lever to open this door so that the challenge becomes a circle, and then reset them. At this point, you will want to start the tedious process of clearing out all of the small enemies one by one. This requires a lot of resetting rooms, but nothing in this process is an exception to the tactics that I have already explained. Once all of the small enemies are dead, switch over to the sorcerer if you have it, put on instigator boots and helmets if you have them, equip your highest damage aura support staff, and load up 32 to 47 fire traps. Then proceed to attract all of the giants in the forge into one giant herd, just like I explained in my last video using wide turns. Once you have all 25 remaining giants in a very tight-knit group, go ahead and start placing traps 4 to 6 tiles apart, and preferably at doorways so that you know that it will hit them. Sadly, it does not seem like mushroom soup or berserk potions affect the damage of traps, but fire grenades are not a good option in this situation like they were in the Sanctum, because using them will trigger the servants of Ash to use their skill, which while it is still very easy to dodge, it will cause the giants to split up, which requires a lot of time to bring them back together. You can use stun grenades, and I often like to use them to speed up the process of bringing them together, but they don't really do enough damage to make it worth it to use only stun grenades. As I mentioned in my last video, this is also a very important time to have tournaments active and to coordinate with the tournaments of your teammates, but I will talk more about that in a different video. After all of the giants are dead, your only task is to loot everything and haul the loads and loads of materials home, which even with a good backpack can often take quite a few trips. Lots of players ask me about the forge mold behind the Whisper and whether or not interacting with it means something, and the simple answer is no. Choosing a bow does not increase your chance of getting a fire bow at the Iron Golem or anything of that nature. It is just simply an awesome decoration that could mean something someday, but probably not. Also, there is no way to open this door and nothing behind it, but if you wait long enough, you will see an animation of some kind of creature trying to break out. This also could be turned into something one day, but probably won't be. Lastly, after using marks to clear the guest hall and Sanctum, it costs an additional 150 marks to clear the forge, and this is an example of the type of loot that you will get. Some people have theorized that you have a higher chance of getting a fire bow than a fire dagger because you're paying for them, but after looking into it, it seems to be about the same. Well, that's it guys, hope that helps. Remember that I already have videos like this for the guest hall and Sanctum, and the archives are coming soon. So if you are having problems with any of those sections, make sure to check those out. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.